the meantime, I've got you all muted, so Maria and Ellen, I'm going to leave it to you to unmute yourselves for your appropriate parts. And yes. Maria, will you kick us off, please?
Absolutely, thank you. So hi everyone and welcome to today's webinar. We're really happy to have Ellen Feldman Ornato and Jenny Drescher with us today from the Boulder Company. The Boulder Company connects individuals to themselves, to each other, and to the future of their organizations. The Boulder Company is an ICCC alum from our 2019 Hartford cohort. Ellen has a diverse work background that includes stints as a city planner, an economic development official, and a marketing director in a large retail chain before co-founding the Boulder Company with Jenny. Jenny has 12 plus years of coaching and training experience in manufacturing, distribution, and construction companies. As a reminder, if you have any questions, please type them into the question box and we'll try our best to get to as many as possible. Thank you, Ellen and Jenny, for being with us here today. And with that, I'll turn it over to the both of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. So,
terrific.
Jenny, why don't you get started with Tech Check?
Yeah, so we're just going to give you a real quick once over on the Zoom platform because we realize not everybody may be familiar with the Zoom platform. So it looks like almost everybody that has joined us by video and audio. And as we've been checking in with other folks joining in, they'll be joining us hopefully by audio and video as well along the way. This is lunchtime, so we know that there may be folks who are like, I'm not going to turn my audio on because I'm eating a sandwich right now and I'll join you in a minute. So that's totally okay. This is a relaxed environment, so have your coffee, have your lunch, have your water. We're hoping this is going to be an interactive session for you today. So if everyone could just hover your mouse over the bottom of your screen for a quick minute, I'd like to point out a couple of tools that you can use and that we will be asking you to use today. One of them is your chat box. Yeah, Ryan Keating already finding us a thumbs up. Awesome, thank you. So you'll see that there is a place, what Ryan just used was a thing called a reaction. So you can give a reaction, you can give a wave, you can give a thumbs up. So you should have a little smiley face in the bottom that can show a little reaction if you want one. There's also, click on your chat box. And what should open up will be a little box on the right-hand side that will show you the group chat, because there will be a number of times when we would like you to answer some questions in the chat. So let's practice that real quick. Everybody really just give me the answer to the following question. What's one thing in your day that's going really well? Let's just answer that. And we're getting a hello from Charmaine. That's great. So tell us one thing in your day that's going really, really well. Yes, we're being sneaky. We're putting in, ooh, processing invoices. Yes. Small business, processing invoices. We love that. Yes. So believe it or not, as we're seeing your answers come in, everybody give us an answer about what's going well in your life, in your day today. One reason we ask about that is because there is such an emotional intelligence skill known as optimism. So finding what's working is a learnable skill of optimism. So we're getting great things. Technology pivot. Oh yeah, sunny weather, checking in, computer is working. Yeah, so a lot of good things going on. So you now all know how to access the chat. So throughout the course of this session, we invite you to go ahead and throw your questions in there. This will be a little bit more structured, so we're not necessarily going to stop and answer your chat questions in the moment, but we are going to have a Q&A at the end. So hopefully, as we go through, we'll be answering some of those questions just through the content. So listen for your answer because it may show up. And then at the end, we're going to linger and give you a chance to ask some questions and give a little deeper dive into places where you may be curious. One more thing I want to point out to you is if you hover your mouse over the top upper right-hand corner of the black screen, not the white chat box, but the black window view, you should have a little thing that says speaker view or gallery view. So we encourage you today to use gallery view because that way it looks like Hollywood squares and we can all see one another, which is really a great way to learn together. That way we're not feeling like we're in isolation in our own homes quite so much. And then I see that everybody has been wonderful and signed in, matching up their names, so I don't have to worry about any odd players going, telephone number ending in 9622, who are you? I don't want to call you 9622. Because it's so awkward to have to call people by a number instead of a name. So, and if there are any other questions, we'll send you into a breakout room, but we'll deal with that breakout room when we get there. And I'll walk you through that process when we get to that point in the program. So you can hop over to the chat. I'm going to be your driver today on tech. Ellen is probably going to be more the point person on our content. I'll be hopping in and out a little bit. Hi, Kitty. As needed from the perspective of content. So if you have any questions, and if your tech is failing, if you're like, I'm lost, I can't see, everything is shutting down, shoot me a message in the chat box and we'll take care of you. All right, so that's enough out of me. Ellen, let's welcome them to the room.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ellen Feldman Ornato, as you can see on my screen, and it is our pleasure. We had a wonderful experience at the Hartford ICIC. And so it's nice to be able to give back to this community, both on the screen today, as well as extended as this webinar is viewed after this session. But for the folks who are in the room, we're just going to give you a moment to really arrive here with us. And I'm going to invite you to put your feet flat on the floor, to put away everything that's in your hands and just settle your hands gently on the tops of your knees. And if you're comfortable, to just close your eyes. If not, just soften your gaze and look at something beside your screen. And take a deep breath in through your nose. And just notice your breath moving in and out of your body. Take nice deep breaths. Try and take a deep enough breath to fill up your belly. Notice your belly expanding in that breath. Take some time to arrive in the room with us. Maybe think about a place that makes you very happy. Could be at the ocean, could be in the woods, could be in a bathtub. Think of a place that works for you. Take another deep, deep breath in. Let it go gently. And then open your eyes. And welcome to our class.
Excellent. So as we're getting started, we'll just point out that this was not a practice that we used to have on our Zoom calls, that we've started doing on our Zoom calls recently. Because one thing that's happening for a lot of folks right now is people are jumping from Zoom to Zoom to Zoom. And the downside of that is they're not arriving. When we arrive in real life, we arrive in the room. We shut the door. We don't stay in hopefully, we don't stay in our phones the whole time that we're in a one-to-one conversation with people. So we invite you to take this practice back to your office, back to your team, working with your clients, anywhere you see fit. Invite people to arrive in the room. So there's tool 1 for you in some emotional intelligence to help you move ahead. Ellen, could you please start us off with a little bit of an overview of what the heck is this EQ thing?
Sure. Assuming the computer works, I sure can. There we go.
Great.
So when we talk about emotional intelligence, and I love this graphic that I found just the other day, for us, it's the umbrella that gives us light when everything else is happening below us that seems to be sucking the energy out of our worlds, right? EQ is something that's measurable and learnable. So unlike our R-cube, which is fixed, and unlike personality type, which is mostly ingrained in who and how we are, these are skills that can be developed and measured over time based on neuroscience and how our brains work, right? And what we find is it is the most vital component of leadership, and particularly with being effective in your communication styles with others, as well as monitoring your own well-being as we move through change.
So there's a Canadian author who has spent many years researching this question of emotional intelligence. And time after time after time, what the research revealed is that all the technology in the world gets you this far. 15% is technology and skill building around areas of technology, and that the rest of it really is emotional intelligence. So it's the beautiful thing about it is that because it's learnable, you don't have to be stuck with, well, I don't have this certification, I don't have that certification, I don't know how to use this tool or that tool, because chances are you can compensate by extending your emotional bandwidth. One thing we like to think of that around emotional intelligence is that emotions drive the bus. Emotions are a system. They're a system of the body, just like your pulmonary system or your digestive system. They are operating whether you know it or not, or whether you like it or not. So the reason we encourage people to use emotional intelligence, develop the skills of emotional intelligence, is so that you can master that skill set instead of being at the mercy of, feelings are happening and I don't know what to do with them, and let them be in control of you. We've all met that person, right? We've all met that person who's just like, they're not in charge of their own mind because their feelings are running everything they do. So the skills of EQ help us to not do that. So what you see in front of you is the emotional intelligence wheel. This is again from Canada. And although this wheel looks a little complex, what it really shows us is there's a measurement tool and instrument that we use. We're going to give you some gifts from this wheel today. And it measures these exact skill sets. So the way it works is, say, for example, if I have good self-regard, and then I may be more likely to have cleaner ways. So self-regard is right here. If I have positive self-regard, I'm more likely to assert for what I need in the moment. I'm more likely to feel like I have a right to speak up about something. If I do that well, if I assert for what I need in clear terms, it has a positive effect on my interpersonal relationships, because then the people that are in my life, whether it's a direct report or a business partner or a child or anybody in my life, if they have a clearer sense of what I need, then it's better for our relationship. There's better trust. So if we have better trust, then chances are we're going to do a better job with problem solving. I'll do a better job with problem solving because I've got more information to work with in varying parts of my life. So if I'm doing problem solving better, chances are I'm managing optimism better. I'm feeling more robust. I'm feeling like, yeah, I got this, I can do this. And then if I feel that way, then look, I'm back at the top of my wheel with stronger self-regard. So all of these skills work together and influence one another. We have used these skills extensively at the Boulder Company, especially lately.
That's right. So just to give you a little bit of background information, we are a small business. We participated in ICIC. Jenny and I are the principal partners, and then we have a bench of 1099s who work with us and for us as part of our extended team. And on March 13th, when we closed our office and moved to our home offices, we had a substantial amount of business in our pipeline with either proposals that had been sent out or we were in the process of finalizing for delivery in person at workplaces, because that's what we do. We are a training and development and active learning organization, and we present at workplaces, or at least we used to. When we moved into our home offices, the first piece that we had to do with and for each other was the emotional self-awareness. We had to acknowledge that we were a little nervous, right? We had to be willing to acknowledge for each other that we had to take that into account, right? Both of us got better at emotional expression and asserting for what we needed with each other as we processed the changes that were going on in our business differently, right? We clicked up on empathy and social responsibility, which was our desire to take care of our relationship first, because that's the core of our business, right? But we were also spreading out and sharing, using empathy as a tool to connect in the most effective way possible with all of the clients that we were planning to work with, who were now putting us on pause and were a little uncomfortable. And we were just leaning towards them and saying, what do you need and how can we help? It wasn't about selling or closing business. It was, how can we be here for you and be a resource? Our background, we haven't talked about this, is in improvisational theater, and we bring those skills to this, which is like, be here now and let's figure out what the next little move is in terms of how we can help you. Not, do you want to buy this program? Because everything that we had been offering them was completely irrelevant in that moment, right? The reality testing with our clients is, what do they need? How can we help them problem solve in that moment? Right? Hold back on our impulse control, which might be to try and sell them something because that's not what they need. And then to manage our own stress around financing and applying for all of these loans. Give me a high five if you applied for one of those loans and you're like, holy moly, nothing tested my EQ more than figuring out how to apply for government loans during this period, right? And how do we take into account managing our own stress, noticing when we're stressed out and maybe we need to go for a walk or do something to relieve the stress? So you can see that all these pieces on the wheel fit together, not only for ourselves, but also for our business, in our business partnership, and our relationship outward facing to clients, right? That we were consistently coming from this place of emotional intelligence as often as possible, and sometimes we fell flat on our face because that's what we do in life. Yes or yes? Yes.
So Ellen, can you do me a favor and give us the next slide?
Sure.
Thank you. So here's a baseline that we want to set for you. So we showed you that complicated wheel. We're not going to get super into that today. We just wanted you to understand that these are skills that you can access and build upon. We're going to give you a slightly different tool now. And we want to point out that this is sort of the normal way that humans react to stuff. That's the technical term, react to stuff. So the normal way that we respond to things happening is something happens. And then, so we're going to walk you through this whole process. Something happens. Okay, great. So I feel feelings, I think thoughts, and then they filter through my belief. The emotional experience, the occurrence, the incident, whatever it is, it goes through my filters, my personal filters and beliefs. And then I react from that place. I react from that whatever it is that those beliefs tell me I should do in response to that. So it turns into a reaction. That reaction then has an impact. May or may not be the right impact. It may not be the impact that I'm out for. Sometimes it's a good impact. Sometimes it's a not so good impact. But the point here is that I'm not the one that's steering this, right? By nature, we're not the ones that are steering this. This is the reactive mode that most of us grow up with, because it's not until we get a little older and we start to learn about skills like emotional intelligence or professionalism that we're able to start managing our own brain. And then we just start all over again with something happens again. So Ellen, thank you, my friend, appreciate that. See, this is great. If any of you decide to start doing your own Zoom meetings, here's a pointer for you. Do it with another person, because one of you can steer and the other one can manage. So hi, Charmaine, glad to see your face on the screen with us. So I'm gonna launch a little poll for you here. So you should be able to see the poll coming up. Can everyone see that poll? So tell me, go ahead and answer that. So here's this thing. You've just been in front of, you've just had a little lunch, a little meal, maybe a little breakfast at your desk, or maybe it's at the dining room table, and now you have this dish in front of you. What should happen to this dish? Right? Empty dish. You've just done your lunch, done a little snack. Everybody answer real quick. What should happen to that dish? What's the first thing that should be done? It looks like I have a typo in there. That's very, very funny.
Wash it. Wash it good.
So everybody tell me what you think should happen to that dish. Let's get some answers up. You should be able to just float your mouse right over there and answer your answer for what you believe should happen to this dish that you just finished your lunch on. So I'm going to give him one more minute to get some more answers. This isn't completely anonymous, by the way, so
we won't
you can tell us whatever you think. We won't tell your spouse. That's right. Nobody's going to know your answer. You have options. Your options are nothing, leave it, it's fine where it is. Well, that tends to be mine. Take it to the kitchen counter, right? Put it on the counter. Maybe you put it in the sink or the dishwasher. Maybe nope, that should be washed right away. Maybe other could include like, well, my cat likes to lick the plate sometimes.
Heidi
So
said
great.
depends
So
on the
we've
day
got
I'm having.
some. Depends on the day. Absolutely. Yep. So that would fall under the other. So it looks like we have about the overwhelming majority of people are in the put in the sink category, and then we have other people who are like, nope, wash it right now, and then we've got other. So there's a mixed bag. Notice that everybody's got a different rule for how this should be done and what should be done with this dish that you've just discovered. So here's the reason we're asking this question is everybody's got a different idea of what should happen to any given thing. So we call this rulemaking. There's an idea called rulemaking that causes humans a boatload of stress. So what kind of rules do you have in your house or in your office or in your workplace or the way you deal with clients? What are your rules for how things should be done? And why would we ask? Well, so if you have a really strong rule that dishes absolutely need to go in the dishwasher, period, when you finish that dish, then someone that, Ellen's like, that's my rule, or that's the rule in your house. So do you get really bent out of shape when somebody violates that rule and they leave their glasses and cups on the counter?
Yeah, unless it's
She's
me.
got such a funny, are you seeing this funny look on her face? She's like, that's me, that's me.
Yeah.
So when somebody breaks our rules, we get upset. We get all bent out of shape about it. I have this challenge in my house too. I have a rule that says if you put a container in the refrigerator, it should have a cover on it. Like, just don't just stick the container in the fridge without a lid. That's a rule of mine that I don't like. So what do? I get aggravated when my husband doesn't follow my rule. Thing is, it's only my rule. So what are your rules? Share in the chat real quick. What are your rules, either at home or at work, that when somebody breaks them, you get kind of tweaked? You get like, oh, maybe it's, what might be examples of this? Like refilling the paper in the copier machine, if you empty it. Refill the coffee in the break room at the office. So let's hear some of your ideas about your rules for living that somebody breaks them, you kind of like, that annoys me. Put that in the chat real quick. I'll give you a minute. I see a lot of thinking faces. People are like, what are my rules? I don't know what my rules are. What are my rules? Don't overthink it. There's no wrong answer. There's no right answer. Yep. Things that must be handled immediately. Yep. Yep, settling up all the books. What are the other rules that we make inside our companies, inside our little companies? All kinds of stuff, right? How long it takes for us to respond to an email is definitely a part of it. Yep, having things be tidy, definitely. Yep, so there's all these rules that we have. Ellen, I believe we have a clarifying slide for them that will help them to understand why this rule-making thing, read the minutes. Yeah, oh, that makes me crazy. Like if somebody comes to the meeting unprepared and they haven't read the minutes and they're not at all prepared for it, oh, that makes me crazy.
So we're using
no animal products. That's interesting. Yep.
So we're using examples from life. Some are from business, some are from life. It's less a question of do you have rules, because everybody has right and wrong, good and bad ways of doing things. And some of us are more assertive in insisting that our way be the way. But the question is, if you broaden out the scope to what's happening in the world right now, and we have hard and fast rules about how things should be done, and should is a real indicator that it's a rule. We like to say, don't should on me, right? If you're shoulding on people, the question is, in the context of what's happening right now, if you employ reality testing, which is an emotional intelligence skill, is what I'm asking of this person right now reasonable? It might have been reasonable to say, have this back to me in an hour before, and now that person has a lot of other things swirling in their environment that might mean that has to be longer. How flexible am I on my shoulds? How much am I thinking about, should I ask first with the person and check in, are you good with this time frame, given what else is going on in your world? Which would be empathy clicking in instead of just saying you should be able to get this done within this amount of time. And this doesn't mean like pulling back on our expectations of folks, but it may mean that we need to turn up some of the skills of emotional intelligence, like flexibility and empathy, to make sure that we're getting things done through people and not tone deaf to what may be happening in their lives.
I want to point out something else here that, Ellen, can you go back to that should slide real quick? Because I want to point out a really nice subtlety that Charmaine offered. So you said we are a vegan, or we are a vegan eatery. Absolutely no animal products used or eaten in the shop. That is a really, really rich example she's giving us, and here's why. One thing that that points to, just a little hint, is that there's a difference between a should and a have to. So the have to is because of the nature of their work. They are vegan establishments. They have to, if they want to be able to declare themselves vegan, they have to have absolutely no animal products. That is part of their brand. It is part of their reason for existing. So they have to be really clear. This is a border. This is a boundary. We don't cross it. So that's a have to. So the outcome has to be about that. It's subtly different from a should, which a should inside that vegan eatery might be around process. Like, well, we have certain processes that we should follow to get to that outcome, but there can be flexibility as long as that outcome of no animal products is still met. There may be flexibility in the path to get there. So that's just a little note about the shoulds versus the have tos.
So where this comes to, if you remember before, we talked about the normal cycle of something happening to it. We filter it through our beliefs and expectations, and then we react, and then there's an impact. That's how we roll through life, right? As emotive machines, creating impacts. What emotional intelligence and our approach to it invites you to do is to break down what's actually happening in that cycle and to make some different active choices. So when you did that first exercise about the dishes on the counter, some of you might have been like, meh, I don't know why we're doing this. This is not important to me. Other people were like, you get on my last nerve if you leave that on the counter instead of putting it in the dishwasher, because we have very different responses to our shoulds, right? Anything within that timeline between meh and oh my gosh is feeling the heat. The more important piece of it is, am I noticing the emotional response I'm having and the physical sensations that I'm having when I am feeling the heat? The next piece is take a beat that we'll get to, but this is an invitation to separate yourself from the source of your irritation, stimulus, whatever it is. Pause to think about what it is about the situation that is causing you to run off the rails in some way. And let's just also be clear, this can be a very positive response. Like you can have a hyper positive response and still not have your EQ in check, right? Like if Bruce Willis walked in here right now and said, you need to leave this webinar, that would be a very positive response. I'd have to check, right? And then the last.
So Ellen, what I'm hearing you identify, Ellen, is an opportunity maybe for them to recognize when they're feeling the heat.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we're feeling the heat, so let's use a quick example, because I think that was really funny what you just did. So when we call this feeling the heat, how do you know you're feeling feelings? Like, how do you know? What are your indicators? So if Bruce Willis walked in, what would the physiological response to be? So how do we know we're feeling feelings? So think for a moment about a moment of maybe irritation that you've had. What did you feel in your body? Right, so what were the sensations in your body? Let's throw a couple of things into the chat right now to indicate how do we know we're feeling feelings? What are the indicators or the sensations of that? Whether it's a negative emotion or a positive emotion or a funny emotion, like what Ellen just said, right? Or my heart rate would go up if he walked in. Yes. How do you feel when you're angry? What does your body do when you're angry? Anybody else like this? Does this happen with your shoulders? Yeah. I see Mike's answer. Yep, my shoulders do the same thing. So there's noises. Yep, tightness in the chest. So what are the other things, the physical indicators that you're feeling feelings? Because here's the thing, folks. If you're not aware that you're feeling feelings and you're not paying attention to it, then you're ignoring information that your body's giving you. Ha ha ha. So the opportunity is to check and see, how do I know I'm feeling feelings? And then to learn how to name them, to develop your emotional vocabulary around this. So did I catch you off at the pass there, Elle? Were you talking about the last leg of our thing there? No? Okay.
No,
so yeah, body clenching.
Right, I notice I have the feeling. I intentionally take a beat and slow down, and we're going to go through that in a second. I pause to figure out what it is that is the source of my upset or excitement. And then I make a productive, meaningful choice, which is very different, once again, than something happens, I react to it, and then it has impacts. One is coming from emotion, the other is coming from choice. So that's the cycle that we've created, this feel the heat cycle. And now I'm going to stop.
I would also add that inside of that little cycle is recognizing what's happening and separating out blame. Because one of the easiest things to do is say, well, I'm feeling this way because so-and-so did that. Right? So that's part of going back to the top of that wheel, checking in and saying, oof, well, okay, and look at me blaming. So that's another component of this, is noticing the feelings of the blaming. Ellen, can you offer them up? I'm gonna go sneak off into the back room here and play around. And will you give them some 2 minutes worth of square breathing while I go play in the back room?
I will. And as an introduction to this, I'm going to say that of all the tools that we offer for emotional intelligence, this one is the easiest one to employ, and we'll talk about how when we're done. And so all I want you to do is, once again, feet flat on the floor, hands gently on the tops of your knees, set everything else aside. All I'm going to be asking you to do is breathe so you're safe if you just close your eyes. And I'm going to ask you to breathe in for a count of 4, hold for 4, release for 4, hold for 4, forming a square with your breath. So if you close your eyes gently, breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. Resume breathing as normally. Open your eyes, look around. That quick respite was 48 seconds. Each round of 4 counts is 16 seconds. Do that before you start a meeting, folks. Do that when you feel the heat. Because what it does very quickly is it calms your parasympathetic nervous system. It tells your brain that all is well. And when you tell your brain all is well, it gives your body time to relax. Okay? When you focus on the sound of your own breath and you focus on a pattern of breathing, it takes you, we do not have dual processors in our brains. We can focus on one thing. The one thing you focus on is your breath and breathing slowly. It will calm you down and put you in a much more rational place to make a decision. So that's called square breathing. That's what we encourage in Take a Beat. But we also, people have lots of different strategies for Take a Beat. What other things, just load them into the chat. What things do you do to shake off tension? Keep it PG. Right? Get a glass of water. That's an excellent idea. That drinking a full glass of water for feeling like our emotions are heightened is really important. dance, take a walk around the house, yes, read a book. Some of us go out and walk every day. We have a walking group that goes out every day at 4 o'clock, and we just talk about nothing, and we move our bodies, right? Read a book, go out and garden, get your hands in the dirt. You know, all of the strategies that we can employ. Sometimes when we're in a situation where we have to stay in the situation, even something as simple as asking the other person a question, rather than feeling pressed to respond in the moment, will give you enough time to regroup a little bit so that you can make an active choice about what you say next. Because we always say when emotions are high, intelligence is low. Right? The more activated our brains are, the more upset we are, the less likely we are to say something that will make sense and move the ball forward. So that is take a beat.
So Ellen, can you please pull up our cognitive distortion slide?
I can.
So the next piece of our cycle is we've given you feel the heat, take a beat, pause. And now another thing that lives, a couple of things that live in our pause area. One of them is what are called cognitive distortions. So that is defined as cognition. That's how we perceive things, how we take in information. Distortion is how we layer on meaning and understanding through mental processes. It's the filters that we mentioned earlier, what we make it mean, essentially, what we make that information mean, how we direct it in our brains. So it's full of assumptions, it's full of beliefs. The rulemaking is one example that we already walked you through. So now, if I have a rule in my head that says the dish should go in the dishwasher right away, then that is a rule in my head, is a cognitive distortion. It is not actual, like there's no truth to that. That's my own personal rule. So that's why it's a distortion and not something real. We're going to give you a chance to explore another dimension of a different cognitive distortion, and it's called catastrophizing. So Ellen and I are going to model this, and then we're going to put you into breakout rooms, and you guys can play with this concept on your own for a couple of minutes just because it's fun. So Ellen, regrettably, my pen is out of ink.
Your pen is out of ink? If your pen is out of ink, how are you going to sign the checks and pay our bills?
I don't know. If I can't sign our checks and pay our bills, I think that the people we owe money to might think we're a bunch of slackers.
Uh-oh, that's going to hit our credit report, and we just applied for that loan. Now we're not going to get that loan.
Oh my God, if we don't get that loan, we're not going to be able to keep this really nice office with this fancy whiteboard.
Oh my God, if we lose that office, then we have nothing left in our business.
No, people are gonna think that we're bums. They're gonna think, oh my God, they couldn't even keep an office. What's wrong with those people? Our reputation is gonna be destroyed.
So you get the point? How quickly in our worlds do we escalate stuff and make little things big things? So we're gonna give you an opportunity now to go into breakout rooms and to practice this, to notice how easy it is to go running off the rails for just the littlest thing. So Jenny, you want to explain how this is going to go?
Yeah. So here's how this is going to work. In a moment, I'm going to move you automatically into breakout rooms. You'll be in a breakout room with probably 2, perhaps 3 other people. And we're going to broadcast out through a message. Actually, you can just use the exact example. Start with the example we just gave you. Your pen's broken. And see how ridiculous you can get. See how silly you can get in how far off the rails you can take this example from, oh, a pen to who knows where you could go. Catastrophize the heck out of it. See how far you can take it with each other. So there's no wrong answer. This is an artificial scenario. Everybody should contribute. When you get into the room, all you need to do is just the person with the shiniest wall or the most colorful wall behind them should be the first person to contribute, and then everybody else that's in there, just help each other out. Pig pile, add on as many catastrophic cascade effects as you possibly can from one simple thing. And we're just going to give you 1 minute to do that. and then we'll pull you back into the room and we'll see who came up with the most catastrophic moments.
Go. Well, we notice everybody coming back smiling, so that must have been okay for all of you.
Martha never realized. We never found her.
Oh, okay.
But Monica and I had a blast.
Good.
There may have been somebody that dialed in and then wandered off. We have that happen from time to time, and that's okay. But I love when I get to see people coming back in and there's little smiles, because then we know that someone, they were able to take it to its absolute extreme absurdity. So by a show of physical hands, because let's use physical hands, did anybody get to absolute like disaster and like lose your home and death? And yeah, everybody, I look at all these smiles. That's hilarious. The first time we ever, yeah, a little bit. Stephen's like, yeah, maybe. Yep. So, so hi to faces that we didn't see before. I see some lovely faces in there. So what you did just then was you practiced catastrophizing. So you'll notice, even though we give you an absurd example of doing this in the environment of you know, a safe little room and example of a cracked phone screen, our brains actually do this all the time. Did you recognize yourself in any of that behavior? I would dare anybody to say they haven't done that at least once in the last month or 6 weeks. Right? Mike's like, no. I see that
Never.
expression on his face. No cheating. He's a doctor. He knows these things. But for everybody else, not our buddy Mike, who's just being fun with us, you know, just notice, like, wow, I may have done this. And here's the funny thing is that maybe you didn't. Like, maybe you're like Mike. Maybe you're like, that's not really my orientation. And I'm picking on, like, my husband is like this too. He's a math teacher, so he's like Mr. Logic. And that's okay, because sometimes that's how people are wired. But the thing is that what about the other people in your world who may be responding that way? So it may not always be you, but recognizing when this is happening for somebody else really matters a lot, right? So yeah, Amy's offering up, she's got a similar response. It's not in nature, I'm always looking for an alternative. Yeah, so you're using that optimism skill. That tends to be my case as well. But it is in the human brain that sometimes catastrophizing happens, because we have brain function that makes us flee from danger. So our brains don't always know the difference between real and fiction, and so we end up with catastrophizing. The good news is that there are a lot of skills that we can use that help us to support not doing that. So Amy, you mentioned looking for an alternate positive path. Part of what you're doing inside of that is you're controlling the impulse to panic. You may not be doing it on purpose, but that's what you're doing. You're also using that other skill that we referenced before, which is reality testing. You're asking your question, what is actual right now? So some of the other skills that are involved in not catastrophizing include noticing, okay, am I feeling feelings? Am I feeling the heat? Being self-aware, checking and seeing, okay, maybe I'm not feeling panic, but is there another emotion at work in me that I may not be aware of, that I should be paying attention to because it may be visible to somebody else? That can happen.
You also
and then
have,
emotional, go ahead.
You also have, sometimes when we're going to run off the rails and it's all happening inside our heads, the ability to say it out loud has us find even the reality and the humor inside of that as well. So, and the piece of EQ is, how am I actually expressing what I'm concerned about? And am I aware of the tone of voice, my choice of words, how rapidly I'm speaking, whether I'm taking up all the oxygen in the room and I'm not creating space for other people to give me their points of view. That whole sort of, am I able, using impulse control, to check the way that I'm expressing myself, so that particularly if you're running a business and we're in the rough seas right now, how are you expressing what's happening in your business to the people in your company so they still have confidence in you as a leader, and they understand all of the moves that you're making to take care of your own business, right? That part of catastrophizing, when we're doing it, we run the risk of hurting our interpersonal relationships if we're not self-aware enough to recognize how our lack of emotional self-awareness may be causing other people to panic unnecessarily, right? And causing concern. And then once again, checking ourselves and noticing, I notice myself escalating. It's a pretty well-worn path. For those of you who have this tendency, you know what things set you off in terms of worry and concern, right? And sometimes you have to check yourself, so that this catastrophizing thing doesn't lead to a place where you feel helpless.
I would add, you just made me think of something, Ellen, because I love all the comments in the chat about, well, it's not necessarily my norm. And I would add, there's another little subtle piece to this when it comes to our interactions with other people, those interpersonal relationships. The other day, my husband was interacting with his sister, who was kind of in a full-on catastrophizing, sort of complaining mood. And he got really annoyed with her catastrophizing, right? But bing, 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 he was annoyed, being the key phrase there, right? So if he was annoyed with her, then how was he being in relationship with her in reaction to her catastrophizing?
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't doing the catastrophizing, but what he was doing was feeling annoyed, so he was getting aggravated. He was feeling the heat himself, like, I'm so annoyed with her right now. She's irritating the heck out of me. Okay, so what did he do? I mean, to his credit, he said, can I talk to you about this? I need to vent. So he did express it instead of stuff it, which is always a healthy thing. So I think that, the row principle. Ellen, we're gonna land this plane on the row principle. Awesome.
Yeah. And I do want to clarify, we're not suggesting that you stuff your emotions or that you don't express your emotions. It's being self-aware enough when that catastrophizing thing clicks in to say, I'm letting my imagination carry me forward in a way that's not healthy for me or the outcomes that I want to create. It's fine to yell and scream about it. It's just choose who you yell and scream about it with. Right? When we're trying to be self-aware and we're trying to be aware of impacts on our team. And so that goes to this last principle that we want to infuse into the conversation, which is something we call the row principle. Very simple. Recognizing our own part in any given interaction or our response to a situation that's happening right in front of us and owning it. That means when we own it, that means we're not using blame, shame, deflection, to put the onus on somebody else if we're having a problem, right? And then work through it. Sometimes other people do have an issue and we have to work through it. That's more about management. Row principle is about self-management. What am I bringing to the table? Am I owning my behavior? And am I working through it in a way that's productive, right? The extent to which we can own our own behaviors and recognize our contribution to what's happening, we have control over what we can do. We have no control over what other people can do. Does that resonate with folks?
Ellen, we need to move on for time's sake. Can you just
We're gonna land that plane.
Thank you, my friend. Yeah, let's land that plane. So here's what we've given you today, which is we've given you our cycle. So we showed you at the beginning that the normal cycle is that something happens, we react, and we have some impacts. Our cycle is feel that heat. Notice that I'm feeling feelings. Take a beat, walk away, go for a walk, take a glass of water, whatever it may be, stretch, do your breathing. Pause, check in, what's going on? What is really happening right now? What tools are in my toolkit? Is there a cognitive distortion affecting, my thinking here? Am I making a rule about a thing? What skills can I use? Well, I've got some, maybe I've got self-awareness, maybe I've got problem solving, maybe I've got assertiveness. So all these different skills from our wheel that we just sort of pinged you on a little bit today to give you a rough idea around that. And then from there, you can make a productive, empowered choice. I would also like to point out, I'm noticing something in the chat about this, that we going into problem solving immediately is great, and entrepreneurs are awesome at that. And be aware of how often you're doing it, because you may be skipping emotional information that's affecting you whether you know it or not. So just a little note about that.
So
we're oh, go ahead, Elle.
It's okay. I was going to say, so we are getting ready to close out the session. What we talked about today has just brushed very lightly over the 15 facets of emotional intelligence that are measured by the EQI 2.0 inventory. This is an assessment that's the highest rated in North America, and it's one that we use to teach people how to get more grounded in who and how they are so that they can be more effective with others. If you'd like to learn more about the Boulder Company, our website is here, and we are available, and we'll stay on the line for probably another 15 or 20 minutes after we end the recording to take your questions and to talk with you further. But we'd like to say thank you to ICIC and to Maria and Dustin for being, and Anna Maria, you were on and then off for being such awesome shepherds of bringing this content to the folks in this session. And what we're going to do is we're going to finish on time and end this recording with a thank you, and then we will stay online to answer your questions. Jenny, do you have anything else to say before we're done?
Actually, I wanted you to drop that slide for me, my friend.
Sure.
You could please do that real quick.
Yep.
And then everybody that was on with us today, if you could just show your beautiful, beautiful face and give us your view. Thank you. Look at that. People popping on. I love it. So let's close out this session with a little future trip. You guys game to go on a little future trip with me? So here's what we're going to do. I want you to just like go like into your head, wave your fingers like this over your head. Come on, do this with me. Come on, do it with me. Raise your, like I make this noise. Don't worry, you're muted. Nobody can hear you. Awesome. And now you're going out into the future. You're future tripping like 2 months out, right? It's the middle of summer. It's beautiful. All the loans have come in. Businesses are all coming back to life. Like, you know, maybe it's 2 months, 3 months, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. Just imagine for a moment that this whole situation has worked out better than you could possibly imagine, right? We are entrepreneurs. This is what we do, ladies and gentlemen. We pivot. So think for a moment, this has worked out better than you could possibly imagine. Now, practicing emotional intelligence, show us on your face and with your body, show us what that looks like. Show us what that looks like. Yeah, nice. I see a lot of big grins. Yes, awesome. Thank you, Steve. Wonderful. Thumbs up. Perfect. See, now just take that in. Take in all these beautiful smiles and notice that we're all in this together and that everybody has exercised just 10 seconds of optimism that easily. So you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for this. Ellen, I think we can leave the recording on and answer questions, but we're going to linger. Thank you so much, everybody, for being with us today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank
All
you
right.
very much.
You too. Thank you so much. What great questions.